And I said, well, can you tell him, please? I don't know if you remember me, Nessim Mas was my grandfather, and they said, well, he'll be here on Saturday after prayers, 12 o'clock prayers, he will be here. And Muhammad Old Galabeya, I think he was a Said. What is a Saidi? That's what they told me he was. Anyway, 90 years old, Muhammad is waiting outside the door. I said, we'll be here after 12. He arrived, Muhammad recognized me straight away, and he said in Arabic, take your sunglasses off so I can see your face. I mean, I was 6 years old when he last saw me. And we just stood. It was such an emotional moment. We just stood, and I told him in Arabic, very smattering of Arabic, that I recognized the house from my grandfather's initials, NM. And he said, he stroked, and he said, "خلينا كله زي ما كان." We left everything as it was.
أنا بفهم عربي.
Yes, yes, he said that. And he talked about my grandmother. He remembered that she had a hearing problem. And he talked about my uncle Danny, who had a motorcycle. He was the Marlon Brando of the Corniche. He talked about my parents, and he remembered. It was just such a lovely connection that I never thought. It was like I couldn't believe that this was happening. It was something that I had never, in my wildest dreams. I mean, I was a woman of 50, and I never imagined in my wildest dreams that this could happen. So we visited places, and they maintained a lot of the architecture of the 1930s, the Art Deco, the brilliant, that glorious era. Of course, everything hasn't been maintained, but you could see the bones, and I could see, I'm very interested in architecture, I could see the vestiges of what was. And so we came back to Sydney, and I resumed my drawing and painting career, but I decided now I was going to paint large works on oil. So I went back to art school. I went back to refresh myself. I went back for 3 odd years to do oil painting. And then I started, and I did a few paintings, and a gallery gave me a very big exhibition. What year was it? Like 19 years ago. It was 2003, 2004. And so I started, the theme was the Egypt of the 1930s. So you can see that on my website. All the paintings are in this row, that imagine, and it's not really imaginary because people recognize it, people who've lived it, and it's only in their memory now, recognize it as indeed that's how it was, that women were always beautifully dressed, the salon de thé, going shopping. It was just a very lovely lifestyle that is gone now. And so this has been my theme for several years. And apart from that, of course, I'm very involved in the arts in Australia. I've painted portraits. I painted, there are national portrait prizes, and I painted a portrait of one of our prime ministers. He sat for me, Malcolm Turnbull, and that was hung in a portrait prize. And I've painted my doctor, Mr. Korush. He was a brilliant surgeon. So apart from the Egypt, I've painted realism as well, and portraits. And I also do, because I'm connected to Australia, and I understand the mentality and the outlook. I've done a lot of vignettes of Sydney, which were very, people loved them. Or did they? Yes. And I was invited during the lockdown, not this current one, but 2020, a local magazine invited me to do the cover of The Beast. And this is it. It's up now. we're all in this together. So everyone's on the beach at Bondi Beach wearing masks.
I see. So now we have your art also in Australia. That was one of the questions. Where is Australia
Yes.
in your work? And this is really fantastic. When we use the roots of the expression "naïve" in French, it's absolutely positive because we are talking about your nature, about your mother country. You know, that's the idea. Sometimes people don't have a good interpretation, but for me, it's really superlative. You know, when you are talking about your roots, about your nature, about everything. And I can say definitely that by looking at some picture of your work, it's really something amazing. It's not just it's not because you're a hero, of course. This is really something fantastic. You have very funny traces, and but you have also something very very delicate. By I can feel that it's also something very actual in your work. The way the ladies are looking, the way they have their hairdressing, it's something modern. So you play a little bit with the old style, and something that it's the everyday life of today, according
I,
to your look. Am I
yeah.
right? Can you tell you something about this?
Yes. Probably I put something of myself in it or something that I aspire to. And I think I mean, it goes across generations. If you see the faces of the ladies that I do in Egypt, very similar to, I have a series which is on my website, looking at the racing season in Australia. And the women have the same expressions. The women are wearing their fascinators with their feathers, they're drinking their champagne. And it's the joy in, I like to paint women because this is so versatile and there's so many things you can do. But I think there's an eternal, what is the word? An eternal uh, commonality amongst women, joyful women. And I think that never changes, whether it was
That's
80
right.
years ago in Egypt, this year in Sydney. It's eternal.
You are really the one. You are fantastic. Your description is poetry for me. Definitely. No, no, no. I'm not
Oh, thank
exaggerating.
you,
Definitely,
Sammy.
because it's very hard to find today something that you have such a description about everything. It's on your memories, your memoir, but you have a style to you make poetry. You know, telling me about
Oh,
everything. So let's go back to our Jewish roots. What do you think about the actual
ah,
situation, and what are you carrying about these Jewish roots that we keep in ourselves from the cultural side, not the political side, not about Zionism? And the
ah,
Jewish style, let's say about the Sepharad and about the Orient or Orientalism, how do you position
yes.
yourself like a woman of Jewish culture? This is for closing our conversation.
Okay, okay. I consider myself a secular woman, if you like. I do light Shabbat candles, but I don't observe. We don't have a particularly religious household. We know we're Jewish. Tony is Ashkenaz. He has embraced the Sepharad in me, and so have I, because it's not something. It's something that came to me later in life. That my Sephardi roots came back to me later in life, and I'm very well aware of it. That's why I took part in this exhibition at the Sydney Jewish Museum, Jews from Islamic lands. I'm very aware that we haven't been recognized as people who have lost everything and who were expelled from their homes, sometimes quite violently, who were deprived of their goods and what they had, and their heritage. They were deprived of their identity and their heritage. And we left Egypt, but I always say we left Egypt, but Egypt did not leave us. We left Egypt and we built our lives from scratch. We tried in Israel. I was very happy in Israel as a child. My mother was a British subject. As they were in Egypt, they had passports. My mother had a British passport, so it was easy for us to migrate to Australia. We came to Australia, and I don't know how many Jews there were, but we came to an area where there was a Jewish community. Hardly any Sefaradis, very Hungarian, Polish, many Holocaust survivors. You know, that was a very overwhelming thing for me to come to terms with the Holocaust. So that took up a lot of my years, early years. So my Sephardi roots and the fact that we had also suffered displacement was put to the side until in recent years when I realized my grandfather, my nonno, Nessim Mars, whose initials were on the gate and who collected kaleshes with velvet upholstery, died of a broken heart in southern Israel on a moshav with no electricity and no road. So we don't address this loss. It just went by and we all got carried on with our lives. My parents were young people. They adapted. But my grandparents suffered. They suffered that loss. They suffered greatly. My grandmother died of a broken heart. She was sipping tea in beautiful porcelain cups in tea rooms in Alexandria. And she died in southern Israel at the age of 65, just suddenly. Oh. And it was hard. It was hard for us. My father, her son, and my uncle, her two sons, had to dig her grave on a rainy day in southern Israel because the undertaker couldn't come because it was Shabbat. So my father, her sons buried her. Anyway, I digress. We were talking about my Jewish identity. I'm very aware of my identity. I'm a Zionist. I'm not virulent about anything. I take people as they come. Some people are nice and some people are not, and whatever they are makes no difference really. And I am staunchly comfortable and accepting of my identity. And I consider myself also the descendant of people who've gone through displacement, an exodus, if you like, and a great deal of suffering.
Terminamos agora a gravação com a Camille Fox, que foi uma belíssima experiência. Agora um pouquinho de português para os nossos amigos. Foi realmente uma honra a forma como ela descreve, como ela cita toda aquela vivência, a passagem dela de uma pequena infância que guarda impressionantes lembranças sobre seus pais, sobre suas origens, sobre o Egito antigo que não existe mais e sobre também alguns egípcios, até pessoas idosas de quase 90 anos, relembrando um pouquinho do passado da família. Foi uma experiência fabulosa que jamais vou esquecer. Eu agradeço a oportunidade que todos me dão para poder expor, fazer essa gravação e me despeço também de todos, depois de ter me despedido da artista Camille Fox e do marido dela, Tony. uma boa noite para todos. Então, um bom divertimento e agradeço aos que estão me assistindo.